Hey YouTube, it's Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters. The bass drum won't stop sliding. I know, I hate that. I hate it so much when the bass drum slides, and I'm sure you do as well. Nothing can ruin a gig more than a bass drum sliding. It just will totally blow your whole mojo. Everything's sliding around all over the place. Kick drum's going out in front of you. It's turning sideways. It's horrible. Everybody hates it. But why does it happen? It might not be the reason you think. You know, the first thing that everybody thinks about is their spurs, which can be the case, but there's a lot of other things that go into this that actually may be happening to you that's causing your bass drum to slide. So let's go over some of those right now and talk about how you can fix them. Okay, number one, spurs. This is the obvious, like I said before, but having good having good spurs is very important. Now you can see here, this is actually a vintage Slingerland kit. Well, it's kind of a player's kit, it's a bit beat up. And the original spurs were basically these posts on the side here. Actually, I have them over here. Let me grab one of them so you can see. So basically these spikes just stuck out from the side of the bass drum. Now these actually worked just fine when they were functional, but they broke. This actually stripped out a long time ago and really doesn't hold those in place at all. And so it was just a bit wobbly. However, even when I was still using these broken, I was able to play without the bass drum sliding. I'm going to tell you why here in a minute. But I figured I would upgrade them, and so I got these awesome DW clip or clamp-on spurs that just clamp onto the hoops. And these things are great for, number one, just ease. You don't have to drill any holes or anything like that. You just, basically just clamp them on there, and they work really good. Perfect for older kits like this or for the lazy. I highly recommend them. I'll post a link down below so you can see. And in addition to that, I have this bass drum anchor in the front here. Now this actually, I could probably get away with not using at all with these new spurs on here, but I had this on here mostly for when I was using the old ones. Now these things are made by Danmar, and you can get these for fairly cheap, and you can flip this around. It has rubber on one side and then spikes on the other side. Right now I have it on the spikes, and they basically just dig in 2 spikes there right in front of you, or right in front of the bass drum, and give you a nice anchor. However, you could still slide even if you're using that. I've seen it happen, and I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so you need a rug. If you're just watching this video and you have your drums not on a rug, get a rug, because they're just gonna slide. No matter what you do, if you're not playing on a rug, they're gonna slide. Always, always, always use a rug, because if you don't, you're gonna be sorry. Another thing that you may not have thought of, and what's highly important in regards to keeping your bass drum from sliding, is the angle of the spurs. If you have your spurs basically too angled and the front of your bass drum is being lifted up, chances are you're going to slide. And the reason is because when you have your bass drum, let me get over here on the other side. When you have your bass drum pedal clamped on the bass drum, a lot of these newer bass drum pedals have bass plates on them underneath. And if you're at a sharp angle in the front of that kick drum, what's going to happen is it's going to put pressure on that bass drum pedal and cause either the hoop to bend, or actually what's even worse is you get a little bit of space under the pedal. So every time you push down, your bass drum's kind of doing this. It's like, it's kind of wobbling. And that vibration alone will cause those front spurs just to lose grip, and it's just going to start sliding. So the best way to make sure that this does not happen is to make sure that when you adjust your spurs, and if you have the anchor, that everything is actually very flat. Like, yes, your spurs are making contact, but it's not overly up in the front or too far down. If they're, if it's wobbling side to side, your spurs are too far down. If you see a giant gap underneath the bass drum, then your spurs are too far up. So make sure you have a nice level bass drum on the floor. Like this one is perfectly level, and it will not slide at all when I play. All right, so we went over the spurs, we went over levelness of the bass drum. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but that's how I'm doing it. Now, the one thing that a lot of people don't even think about is their technique. Now, technique is actually very important in how you're hitting your bass drum, and it could actually be a good reason why you're sliding. Now, if you're playing and your foot, actually, let me put my camera off to the side here so you guys can see more of what I'm talking about. Now, when you're playing, I actually use a heel up technique on my bass drum, but it doesn't matter if you're using heel up or heel down. When you're playing, if the pressure that you're putting on your bass drum when you actually, use the bass drum, If you do that and you put force this way, you're going to urge that bass drum to slide forward. And what I mean by that is, like, check your technique. You may be, every time you push down, you may be actually going forward a little bit. Now this can happen especially if you're sitting up too high on the drums, and if you have a really sharp angle on your knees like this, then that may cause you to actually push forward a little bit more with your foot than if you were just seated a little bit lower. Now you don't want to be too low either, because that's really bad for your hips. So make sure that when you're playing, if you've been playing a long time, you might have developed a bad habit. If you can't, if this keeps happening to you and you can't figure out why, it may be this, and you're going to have to break it. But what you need to do is make sure that when you kick the kick drum, you're pushing straight down. Not forward. Because if you push forward at all, that's just going to, push that bass drum. Because, yeah, the bass drum beater hits the bass drum in a forward motion. But that's different than if you actually push this part of the pedal with your foot. That's actually, putting a lot more pressure forward than the bass drum being hit. Because actually when you hit it, it's really not putting that much pressure. It's just kind of slamming right in the middle, and hitting the sound that you let off right away. But if your foot is constantly putting pressure forward, while you're playing, then you're just going to start pushing the bass drum forward as well. All right, so those are my tips on how to keep your bass drum in one place and keep it from sliding. Hopefully you found that helpful, and some of those tricks might work for you. If you're still having problems, even if you've tried all of that, I don't really know what else to tell you. One of those should work, so double check everything again. Oh, hey, by the way, my band is doing this thing by Least of All Recordings, where we're basically going into their studio and recording directly to vinyl onto a 7-inch that you can purchase. And you can actually pre-order one of those right now with the link down below. And what's going to happen is you request a song, one of our songs, we're going to go into Least of All's studio, play that song, and they're going to cut it directly into a record that only you will own. So definitely check one of those out. It's going to be a unique, one-of-a-kind item, and it would really help us out too if you supported by purchasing one. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you guys really soon. Have a great day. And don't forget to have a great day. Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye. Bye.